Hi everybody and welcome to episode 1 of my 2020 Marathon des Sables update. As you may have seen me post over recent weeks and months that I'll be documenting my journey, not just to show you how my training's going and my preparation's going, but to try and illustrate to you how I formulate some of the endurance sports planning and programming that I do for myself and others. Hopefully it'll be more about performance and injury prevention rather than me showing you how I rehab my injuries, because touch wood, will avoid them. So for number 1, I just wanted to outline where I'm at right now, how I've formulated my program, and what the next sort of 8 to 12 weeks hold. So I've written myself a 30-week program. Now, when I write programs, the period of time that I give for a program for preparation is based on the athlete and the event and what we need to the gap that needs bridging in between where they are now and what that event involves them needing to get to the start line. So for myself, 30 weeks has been deduced by those two factors, but also knowing that I've had to put those X factors in. So my children, my work commitments, the commitments through the children on weekends, and how I can give myself enough time without being too little or too much. What I don't want to do is have a program that is too condensed and increases the likelihood of me struggling to complete it and or pick up some niggles along the way because I'm overloading myself too quickly. Likewise, I don't want to psychologically stress myself with a long program over a longer period of time, which requires that sort of constant commitment. Some people I know training for their first Ironman give themselves almost a year, which to me is quite a long time to remain focused for. So I've given myself a 30-week program, but physically the reason it's been 30 weeks as well is my program effectively is 2 programs in one. I've given myself an 8 to 12 week program of base building and strength building, which will prepare me for a 18 or 20 week program of big, intense running, heavy mileage, big mileage in preparation for the race. So the next 8 to 12 weeks is basically me building a consistency of running in my system that allows me to cope with those loads. I'm not doing ridiculous mileage. I'm probably for the next 8 to 12 weeks not doing much more mileage as far as distance or frequency as I would for a bog standard marathon program. I'm certainly not looking at any intensity because it's just about going long right now and building that base. But while my cardio almost stays down here, what I'm trying to build up here is a level of tolerance in my system through strength work that will help me cope with the bigger demands when they come. Check out the next few seconds of this video of some of the strength things that I'm doing right now, and I'll be back after this to carry on talking about what the specifics of the program involve. So hopefully that little 30 seconds or so give you a clip of some of the types of exercises that I'm doing 2 to 3 times a week in the gym right now. Although there's many exercises that you can choose to build a strength base, for myself here, I'm targeting those muscle groups and those movement systems that will be involved in running through sand, running up and down hills, and the components of this particular race. But many of those cross over to whatever endurance sports that you guys are trying to train for, particularly for running. So I'm going to be starting off, as you can see in those videos, with quite low level work. It's more about medium range reps at a relative medium intensity, but I'm trying to build strength and power to drop my, to increase the dosage of intensity and resistance level, and I'll be dropping the sets and the amount of work per set that I'm doing. So I'm aiming over about the next 12 weeks to get to sort of 4 or 5 sets of 4 to 5 or maybe 6 repetitions per set. And that I'm failing or struggling to fatigue for the last few. Why I'm doing that is because one of the common mistakes I see with endurance athletes is they try to start a cardio program and a resistance program at the same time. And they both try to improve and increase as they go forward. And then they reach this crux point about 10 weeks into a program where they're doing heavy, high mileage or whatever cardio they're training for, coupled with hard resistance training. And something's going to give. It's very hard to maintain 2 intense levels. So the strength tends to go and they tend to bin it because cardio will always be king and therefore they don't get the gains they want. So by focusing on this strength work for the next few months, I'll build myself a level of resistance tolerance that will allow me at that point to, as I ramp my cardio into the big weeks and the big mileages, not only cope with it, what evidence is suggesting now is once a week, still at the heavy resistance load that I've built up to over the next few months, will be enough to maintain it. So I'm trying to box clever, I'm trying to play clever, I'm trying to get to the point that I can tolerate it with and maintain that tolerance whilst increasing my cardio. So that's the theory behind it now. When I'm talking about my 18 to 20 week of big mileage coming up to there, then what I've done for that is basically given myself a level of flexibility, a level of freedom, a threshold of get out of jail, so to speak. Now, time is hard for me to dedicate right now to training because of everything else. So what I've done is I've given myself 4 run sessions a week. When the miles ramp up, that may drop down. But with 4, and on my program, all it does is session 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't dedicate days. I don't dedicate certain times of days. I know that in a particular week, I have 4 sessions that I need to do. How I do those will depend on what's going on in the week. But I've given myself a range of flexibility to cope with the inevitable unknowns that pop up with life. I've overprescribed my training program. I've given myself about probably 20% more than I think I probably need to do to get successfully across the line in Morocco. But what that gives me is a fudge factor, that if I can complete 80% of my training program, I'm probably going to be okay. Now, it's important to note when you do that, the program accommodates that extra 20%. If I wrote a program that was probably the baseline level of fitness that I thought I needed to achieve to get across the line, the base amount of cumulative mileage, so to speak, and then only completed 80% of that program, then in effect, perhaps I'm doing 60% of what I would want to do to get there, and I'm increasing the risk of not having done enough to get there. So that's the rationale behind it. Now I will zoom in as the weeks go on and the months go on and explain some particular sessions, what the terrain and the distance and the time and the aims of those sessions or weeks are. But that's just a nice overview to try and help you understand where I'm at. Next week I'll be back where I'll chat about some of the specifics of the strength program. So you've seen in this clip that I'm chatting about the specifics of general training to get myself more robust. But individually to me, there's some areas in my body that I know are prone to struggling when I'm building up the mileage, and I'm going to do some work, some prehab as some people like to call it, on certain muscle groups to work on those, and I'll zoom on those next week. I'm Mike James, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll be back soon. Take care.